There we go. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Sam Rhodes, and I wanted to welcome everyone on behalf of PIDC to, I believe, our first ever webinar. And this webinar, of course, being on business impacts and responses to COVID-19. I really wanted to, I think this is a little bit of a challenge to do over a webinar, but I wanted to the extent possible, provide a little bit of a shout out to my colleague, Fmla Hamilton. Over a week ago, as the COVID-19 crisis started to unfold, she and I sat down in her capacity as being in charge of client engagement at PIDC to think about what our client businesses might be working through. And at that point, we had no sense of what it would become. So deep appreciation and gratitude to Fmla for bringing this together in a very short time. I think we have over 250 people on this webinar, which I think is a testament to the importance of it. You know, PIDC, I feel like we have really been on the front line of hearing all of the terrible, terrible stories that you and other small businesses across this city have been hearing. And I'd like to say that at the same time that there's so many stories that would bring a tear to your eye, we're also witnessing a terrific response, both at PIDC. I have many colleagues who are working 24/7 effectively to try to create response to this crisis. And it really is a time to come together. We know that people are afraid and uncertain of what might come. And we think it's all the more important that we at PIDC become that or continue to be that trusted resource for Philadelphia's small business community. We ourselves are open for business. PIDC is open for business. We're all working remotely. And as I go through this, I wanted to ask you that if you find this information valuable, please provide us feedback. If there's information you'd like to see for future webinars, please likewise reach out to my colleague Fmla Hamilton, and we can see about doing additional presentations. Fmla, I'm trying to advance the slides, and I don't know whether you've handed over the control to me, but it wasn't working.
You have control.
Okay.
Click the first slide.
Okay. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. Whoops, we lost the full screen. Let's get that back. I did say before 1:30, I mentioned to folks, again, this is our first ever webinar. We think we have this operating technologically, but please bear with us. Before I jump into our agenda, I wanted to make a few quick points on the use of technology. Goodness gracious, speaking of which. And the first is, this is a great time for you to adopt technology to the extent that you haven't done it already. If you haven't adopted these technologies before COVID, and depending on the nature of your business, this is the time to go online to achieve all of the efficiencies that you can and to reach as broad an audience as you can. With respect to your banking, a lot of this is common knowledge, but for those of you who haven't, there are multiple ways to make payments and receive payments into your bank accounts from remote. Those include automatic clearinghouse, commonly called ACH, and wire transfers. There are some pluses and minuses of each of these different technologies. In short, ACH payments can take a couple of days on the one hand, but they're inexpensive or free. You should be looking at your banking arrangements and seeing what you can do. You can do them from remote, they're secure, and you can send and receive payments. Wire payments, on the other hand, are instant, but they do have fees associated with them, and you can only, well, you can send payments and then you'd have to arrange with your bank to receive them in. So again, this is the time, to the extent that your office is shut down, to make sure that you're taking advantage of all of those things. Likewise, This is a time to set up online commerce and maximize that. Make sure that your search engines are optimized, that you're reaching out to as broad an audience as you can. Like we are here, take advantage of webinars or other technologies that are out there to continue to communicate with your employees and with your clients. So again, some of these things are already clear, already available to you, but this is really the time and the place to make sure that you've got them in place. This graphic just really illustrates some of the different benefits of using your online presence. You can reach new customers, you can keep an eye on your buyers. It's very accessible. You can reach out globally and so on. So take advantage of the technologies that are already out there in this time. With that, I just wanted to go over the agenda lightly and then we'll start. We're going to start by talking a little bit about managing reduced revenue. I will kick that off and continue with that. We've also then brought on 3 of our colleagues on topics that we thought might be of interest to you all. Kate Sion with the O'Connor Group is going to speak to various human resource issues. We also have Donna Ali with Team Clean, the founding CEO and president of Team Clean, to talk about disinfecting your workplace, a topic that's all of a sudden we're very aware of. And then last but not least, we'll turn it over to John Bonnet with the CH Bonnet and Company to talk about insurance. I think insurance concerns have been on a lot of people's minds in terms of what and will not be covered. If time allows, at the end, we'll have Q&A. Because this is a webinar, obviously that can be a little bit awkward, and we'll give further instructions. But if you take your cursor down to the bottom of the screen, you should see a chat option come up. And so you can type in a question in that chat. Please address it to me, and then I'll read it out and address it to whoever is the appropriate person. So with that, I wanted to start the agenda and talking about managing reduced revenue. A lot of these things are fairly obvious, but take this moment to know your business and to know your financials. If your financial statements aren't in order, maybe this is a good time to do that. Make sure that you have a strong understanding of how COVID has impacted your business and how you expect to recover. You should be drafting the business plan that you never wrote and identify your fixed expenses and make sure to work with whoever you can work with on those expenses in terms of forbearance. I've had various conversations with lenders throughout the Philadelphia area, and they, like PIDC, are getting requests for forbearance, and you should reach out to them. And I think in advance of doing that, again, make sure that your house is in order, that you understand your financials, you understand how COVID has impacted you, and you can articulate to the best degree possible how you expect to grow out of it. I also wanted to, before I turn this over to Kate, I wanted to review a number of different efforts that are going on at the public sector, at the state and federal and local Philadelphia level of governments to help provide emergency relief. PIDC, our web page, which is www.pidcphila.com, has a COVID link on it. I encourage you strongly to go onto our website and click on that link. We are getting a tremendous amount of response and inquiry, and we're working hard to drive everybody through that website, again, as a trusted resource for Philadelphia's businesses. On there, you should see different resources that we further link you to. One of the things that we've been doing at PIDC is that we've been partnered with the city of Philadelphia, and we've created, pardon me, I think I jumped the gun a little bit. We partnered with the city of Philadelphia to create a web-based survey. I'm trying to take this back, apologies. And please do go on to that, which again is linked through our website. Kate, sorry about this, I'm trying to back up, but we'll turn to you in a minute. Likewise, we've been partnered with the City of Philadelphia to create a small business emergency relief program. That program, we expect to, the mayor indicated that this was forthcoming at the beginning of the week. We are hopeful that we with the city will be in a position early next week to be able to announce further details. We expect it to have a combination of zero interest loan and grant elements to it. And they will be addressed to the small and very small business community. So keep an eye out again on our website, on the city's website. Those details should be forthcoming. Secondly, we've been working very closely with the Commonwealth's Department of Community and Economic Development, as well as the United States Small Business Administration. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in combination with DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development, is working hard now to put together, likewise, a small business emergency relief fund. If you go onto our website, as those details become available, you can link through to that. The SBA, the United States Small Business Administration, likewise has a program called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL program. As of last night, Philadelphia met the criteria that the SBA requires to be eligible for that program. So go on either directly to sba.gov's website, or again, you can get linked through the PIDC website. Those disaster loans are available for a broad array of uses, up to $2 million for small businesses, repayable over a 30-year maximum term at rates that are less than 4%. So please look to take advantage of those. In addition, as the slide indicates, PIDC is still open for business. We are still getting new requests for loans in this crazy environment. Obviously, there are businesses that are completely shut down. There are other businesses that are seeing additional demand. So for example, folks in the food distribution, or Donna, maybe you can speak to this, but I wouldn't be surprised if people who are in charge of doing deep cleaning are seeing increased requirements. So to the extent that you have financing needs in the normal course of business, you should feel free to continue to reach out to PIDC. And with that, those are some of the efforts that are ongoing that PIDC is coordinating with the City of Philadelphia, with the Commonwealth, and with the United States government. And with that, Kate, I am going to pass it off to you to talk a little bit more about human resources. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a lot to cover today. We know that there are several concerns that employers have right now, and we've put together some slides that will cover most of them. I think, you know, as many of you are seeing, this is an ever-evolving issue. So, you know, things are going to change quite frequently. So, you know, we'll be happy to answer some questions, hopefully at the end, to kind of, you know, address any specific concerns that everyone has. Just a quick introduction. My name is Kate Cione, and I am the Director of Human Capital Practice at the O'Connor Group. At the O'Connor Group, we service small and mid-sized businesses. We help provide human resources services and talent acquisition services to companies all throughout the country, but specifically within our the greater Philadelphia area. And, you know, we've been, as many of you can imagine, we've been faced with many questions in the past week. A lot has changed. A lot is happening, and yeah, we're just all, you know, we're trying to navigate this new normal with all of you. So let me just move this, see if I can get the slides. I don't, Marla, I'm not seeing the control of the slide. Can you?
If you click the screen and then the arrows, you should be fine.
All right, there we go. Okay. I think it's just a little delayed.
Just click the down arrow, you should be fine.
There we go. It's coming. All right, so the first area that we wanted to talk about is work culture recommendations. So many of our clients are facing 3 different scenarios right now. The first, they're operating in fully remote work environments. The second, they are considered an essential business and they are open. You know, some companies are doing like partial schedules and things like that. Or the third scenario, unfortunately, we do have some clients that have been asked to close. So we're going to address all 3 of those scenarios, and we have some culture tips that we can share with everyone today. So the first and the biggest is remote work culture. So as many of you are navigating new territory with remote work environments, we have a few tools and resources we can provide to you. So you know, one of which is Zoom, which we're on. I think it's very important that when you're moving to a remote environment, that you have communication tools that will enable everybody to stay connected. So we have some tools here that we've suggested. This tool that we're hosting the webinar on today is called Zoom. Zoom is a great video conferencing tool. It's very easy to use. So, and typically there's a free account that you can have everyone in your organization sign up for. They do limit the free accounts to 45-minute presentations, but Zoom is a great way to get on and stay connected via video. We think it's very important to use video as a tool when you have a remote staff. You know, it's a great way to stay connected. Some other tools are Uber Conference. Slack is a chat messaging tool, and Microsoft Teams. So last week, when several of the employers that we support moved to remote environments, many of them had never functioned that way before. What's nice about Microsoft Teams is if you have a Microsoft account, so if your business has a Microsoft email, you can actually download Microsoft Teams and implement it out to your entire staff. There's actually a video tool in Microsoft Teams as well. So you can use Zoom or you can use the video tool in Teams. Teams also functions as a chat tool. So it's a quick and easy way to put a tool in place that will enhance the work culture and enhance the communication. Which brings me to my next point. Communication is key in remote environments. We recommend that people over communicate. And what I mean about that is, you know, if you feel like you are sending too many emails or calling too many times, you're probably not. People are working by themselves, and, you know, so connecting and reaching out to your staff as much as possible is key. One of the things that our organization has implemented is daily 15-minute huddles. So every day at lunchtime, we all get on video real quick and just check in with one another. You know, it's just, you know, not checking in about anything in particular. We're not really talking too much about, you know, work specifics, but we're just kind of connecting with one another, getting a chance to see one another, and, you know, and just, again, feeling connected. It's so important when you're remote that you do as much as possible to continue to stay connected. It's also very important that you're defining productivity expectations. So, you know, in the absence of seeing each other in person, in the absence of your typical weekly conference call or, you know, meetings, we think it's very important that you're defining expectations. When we implemented remote work with several of our clients last week, many of the business owners expressed concerns over whether or not, their team was going to be productive. There's a few different ways that you can work around that. We've had people, send out daily expectations to their team, or asking your team to recap what they've accomplished throughout the day. So again, that might be a little bit of a different culture. It might be a little bit of a culture shift to, communicate that often on what is happening, but I think it's a really good tool to use that. So just setting expectations and making sure you're following up, I think, is very important. Again, stressing the importance of video. So we strongly recommend using video tools. I think what's really important right now is that, my recommendation would be don't postpone meetings. Try to keep things moving as much as possible. And even though it may feel very different and it might in some cases feel uncomfortable to get on video, we recommend using video as much as possible and keeping things moving by connecting via video. As we all know, this has been a very different and stressful week. So keep it fun, do whatever you can to share virtual resources with your team. There's actually a lot of great virtual resources out there. There's virtual museums, there's free opera streaming. We've also been implementing contests and virtual happy hours. So every Friday at 4:45, we get on the video together and we all kind of have a virtual happy hour. It creates a great sense of community, keeps people connected, and keeps it light and fun. I think it's very important. It's our job as employers to keep the morale up as much as possible in this difficult time. Now, if you are unable to implement remote work in your environment, if you are an essential business that is open for work, it's very, very important that you're implementing strict social distancing measures with the spread of the coronavirus. So the CDC recommends 6 feet distance. In some cases that's difficult to do depending on what you're doing, what the industry is and what the work that needs to be complete, what that looks like. But as much as possible, whatever we can do to mitigate the spread of this disease, we have a social responsibility to do that. So implementing strict social distancing measures if you still have to stay open, and making sure you're communicating that out to your team and you're setting the expectation for that. The second thing is anyone who is sick, we recommend requiring them to do a 14-day self-quarantine. The testing is limited right now. So, having an employee able to get to the doctor and come back with a negative test for coronavirus is going to be very difficult. So we are implementing 14-day self-quarantine for anyone that is sick. If they can get a doctor's note to return saying that they, are cleared by their doctor, then that's great. But as this gets, unfortunately, this may get worse before it gets better. So staying on the side of caution, I think, is the best way to handle it. We also recommend considering implementing a 2-week coronavirus leave. We're going to talk a little bit about the Family First Coronavirus Act that was implemented last night in the 3rd slide. But as we're kind of navigating that new legislation, I think it's important to have something in place as soon as possible. So, putting a policy out where you're allowing your employees to take off for 2 weeks because of this leave, whether it can be paid, unpaid, that really depends on the business and what the business can handle. But having some sort of policy and getting communication out in that policy as soon as possible is important. And then lastly, if you're closed and you're unable to work remote, so this is a little more complicated. We've never, in the HR community, we have not had a situation quite like this in the past. So what we've been leaning on is the FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act, requirements for disaster And they, so if there is a natural disaster and a company needs to close, I'm going to go through those requirements, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the Family First Coronavirus Act, because some of this plays into that. But exempt employees, the requirement is that if you're closing for more than a week, that if you have someone who is non-exempt from overtime, that you are not required to pay them, and if they're exempt from overtime, that you are going to pay them for that week. And that is based on a natural disaster. And so up until when the Coronavirus Act was implemented, that's really the legislation that we were using to guide pay for non-exempt and exempt employees. And again, putting in some sort of policy in place where you are implementing a 2-week coronavirus leave is also, a best practice. Having something out there, having some sort of policy out there, I think is a great way to handle things. And having things squared away that way really helps with communication with the employees. It helps, take out any unknowns, which, it's scary enough as it is. So having things set up that way is a great idea. We've listed some employee resources. We recommend that employers are, again, communicating as much as possible during this time. It's been a very hectic, stressful time for employers and employees alike. So, communicating as much as possible, offering your employees resources, and explaining to employees how to handle the situation, whether it's pertaining to what they're doing at work or just pertaining to, how it's affecting them in their personal life, I think is really important. So a few resources here to share. So Teledoc is a great resource right now for employers. If you offer medical plans to your employees, it's very likely that there is a Teledoc resource associated with your benefits plan. So just some quick information on Teledoc. Teledoc is the ability to visit a doctor through video. So they don't necessarily have the same ability to, to diagnose the same level of sicknesses that you would be able to do in person, but there are some things that they can address. And I know that the Teledoc has been a big piece of what the president has been working on setting up for people. So especially as the hospitals and doctors' offices get overwhelmed, we're probably going to see a lot more come out about Teledoc resources surrounding coronavirus. We recommend communicating out to your employees to sign up for text alerts in their area. So things are changing every minute. The latest information is usually coming out via text alerts. So, sending out a communication to everybody and giving them that recommendation, make sure that everyone is aware of what's happening in their area. Testing locations are starting to pop up throughout Philadelphia and the suburbs. And so, know where your testing locations are close to your facility and communicating that out to your employees. Again, reinforcing social distancing is so key. The CDC recommends 6 feet of distance. So if you are still operating, if you are one of those essential businesses that is continuing to stay open during this time, do everything you can to maintain 6 feet distance. I've seen a lot put in place recently to adhere to that. I know that grocery stores are putting, signs out and lines where, somebody has to stay behind the line while someone finishes their purchase and then they can advance forward. So, think about those types of things that you can put in place in your operation and, put signs out, put any kind of regulation out so you can keep people at a 6 feet distance. There's a link here for a COVID-19 patient decision flow chart. This is really important. I'd recommend that everybody takes a look at that. So what that does is it actually shows employers what to do if someone has been exposed to COVID-19. and it actually addresses firsthand exposure and secondhand exposure. So, you know, as I've been noticing, we're kind of hitting the second wave of this entire situation. You know, last week was, okay, you know, maybe we should have people working from home. And unfortunately, now we're starting to see people, you know, are exhibiting symptoms. And so when you have somebody come to work that's exhibiting symptoms, as I said in the previous slide, you want to recommend that they do a 14-day self-quarantine. But then, you know, what do you do for someone who has exhibited symptoms? What do you do for the people that have been exposed to that person? And so, you know, this flow chart actually tells you very easily, you know, what recommendations you should make and when, in what situations should those people self-quarantine as well. So we've been sharing that with our employers, and we recommend that employers are sharing that with their employees as well. A few other Philadelphia resources. With the school closures, there's been several locations that are actually doing student meal pickups, which is great. So there's a link there for all of the locations that are doing student meal pickups. I've also listed out the coronavirus helpline for Philadelphia. And again, all of the information that's on this slide, we recommend sharing with your employees. Some other PA resources, there's the PA Health Hotline, and there's also the PA Governor Coronavirus Resource Site. So that's the link to the Pennsylvania site with all of the latest coronavirus information. And then lastly on here, we also just list out, you know, if you have any questions, if you need assistance during this time with human resources, we can definitely help. So we work with small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and we can kind of be that interim resource for you as we navigate this complicated issue. I advanced ahead, so let me just go back real quick. I got a little stuck. Marla, do you have, okay, I think I got control back. Sorry about that. There's a slight delay, so it's, there we go. Okay. Oh, one more time. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go through this pretty quickly. This is probably what many people are gonna have several questions about. So last night, the Family First Coronavirus Act was passed. So I'm gonna go through the basics of this act. We'll go through them pretty quickly. There's a lot that's here. There's a lot to unpack. We'll probably understand more as some of this is implemented and put in place. So, you know, just keep in mind, there's going to be a lot more coming out about the Coronavirus Act. So the main things that are listed in the act is number one, free coronavirus testing. So, and, you know, that is something that, you know, these testing locations are being set up right now to accommodate that. There's been some amendments to the Family Medical Leave Act. So FMLA is typically 12 weeks of unpaid leave for the sickness of an employee and the sickness of a family member. So that has been extended to cover the inability to work due to care of a child under 18. The way that it's set up according to this act is that the first 10 days of the emergency leave may consist of unpaid leave, but that but it would also include 2/3 pay up for the remainder of the 12 weeks. So, and then there is a cap put on that. So the bill provides that the amount does not exceed $200 per day and $10,000 in the aggregate. The bill does allow the Secretary of Labor to exempt employers with 50 employees from the emergency FMLA leave requirement when the imposition of this requirement would jeopardize the viability of the business. So, and we're going to learn a lot more about this in the next few days. So, I know there's a lot here and there's probably a lot of questions around this. So just keep in mind more information will be coming out. This was literally just passed last night. The second piece of the bill, so the first piece is the Fmla amendments, and then the second piece is related to sick pay. So the bill mandates that employers with fewer than 500 employees provide paid sick time to workers. There was already an act in Philadelphia called Promoting, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with. It's called Promoting Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. That is actually already in place. So Philadelphia does require sick pay already. But this bill is mandating that employers with fewer than 500 employees provide sick time. So this applies if the worker is sick or if they've been quarantined due to COVID-19. Full-time employees are entitled to 80 hours of such leave, and part-time employees are entitled to time equal to the number of hours they work on average over a 2-week period. And that leave does not carry over. So again, I'm sure there's many questions about the Coronavirus Act and how exactly, can we put these things in action and how do they apply? So, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more information coming out about this, but this was just passed last night. All right. And now I'm going to turn it over to Donna, the president and CEO of Team Clean.
Donna, you've got to click a screen and then your up and down arrows. Donna, can you unmute?
I think you have the wrong Donna.
Okay, I'm looking for Donna Ali.
That's not me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Excuse us. This is what I'm going to do. Donna, I need to know how you are signed in. And John, I need to know how you're signed in so I can get you. We apologize, everyone. Okay, I found you, Donna. And Donna, if you click the screen, you're on.
Okay. You click the screen. Wow. So can you hear me okay? Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank Kate. Kate, that information was really valuable to us, to Team Clean. And so now we're going to talk about how to disinfect your office. So let me just start off by saying Team Clean is a janitorial and maintenance company. We've been in existence about 37 years, and we're certified by the American Biorecovery Association. And so what that means is that we're certified to clean infectious disease after infectious diseases. The industries that we serve are K through 12, colleges and universities, event venues, healthcare facilities, retailers, and post-construction cleanup. And as you can imagine, all of these industries have been affected by COVID-19. So what's important to know? So let's talk about what is cleaning. What is cleaning? Cleaning is the act of removing dirt and debris from a surface. Cleaning is removing grime. Cleaning is dusting. Cleaning is sweeping. Cleaning is those things that you see your cleaning contractor or your housekeeper do around your facility. But what it is not disinfecting. Disinfecting is the act of removing germs from surfaces with a bona fide or approved disinfecting product. So that's the difference. What's important for your cleaning contractor to know? You know, oftentimes, you see your housekeeper and your cleaning contractor come around and, they're trashing and dashing and cleaning surfaces. But during this time, and it's always been important, it's not just during this time, it's important for your cleaning contractor to understand the difference between cleaning and disinfecting. It's also important for them to understand what products to use, approved products, approved disinfectants. And you can find that on the EPA's website. Just recently, on March 13th, the EPA approved 200 additional products. So it's important for you to know what your cleaning contractor is using. Everyone, is so important to pay attention to what your cleaning contractor is doing. We use in Team Clean right now, and by the way, we're doing probably about, I would say 20 to 25 facilities a day disinfecting right now because the calls have just been off the hook. So I just want to talk about, I'm sorry, I need to go to this other slide, and how do I do that? Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Go back down. Sorry about that. I don't know how to. Uh-oh. Everyone, I apologize. This is my first webinar as well. And I'm going, I've handed over and I'm on the wrong slide.
Go up.
Can you help me out to go?
Yep. Your up slide, your up arrow.
Okay.
One more time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Your up arrow.
All right. Go up again. Up again.
It's coming through.
Oh, it's coming through. Oh, here we are. Okay. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about what we're doing right now. So we are using the Clorox Pro Total 360 system. It's an electrostatic sprayer. Now, I got to tell you that I am not promoting this product. It just happens to be what you use. I don't have any stock in Clorox, and I'm not advertising for Clorox 360, but we use it because it works up to 75% faster, and it covers up to about 18,000 feet per hour. So I just want to talk about, I've been in this business 37 years. And when I first started out, I guess within 5 years into the business, the productivity rate for cleaning was about 2,800 square feet in an hour. Over the years, and currently what we're doing now is 4,500 to 5,000 square feet an hour in office facilities. So what do you think that means? That means that all we're doing in this industry, I mean, when you have that type of time, is you're wiping surfaces, you're emptying the trash, you're dusting, you're vacuuming, and then you're leaving. And it's not really the cleaning contractor, it's what the industry says. If you're going at 45,000 square feet in an hour, well, by golly, that's all you have time to do. But now we're paying attention to what we clean, and facilities are going to be asking for more cleaners, and they're going to be asking for a slower productivity rate. So now you can see how things have changed over time. Business owners, I would recommend, I'm sorry, go up, okay. Down, 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 okay, sorry about this. Okay, so I would recommend for business owners, first of all, a clean environment, a disinfected environment, clean hands. Always wash your hands. We know that now more than ever. Post signage in prominent places within your company, all over. Wash your hands. It needs to be posted all over. Use an EPA or a CDC approved germicidal. Read the labels on the bottle for the correct time, for the correct kill time. So it's important for you to understand, by the way, let's go back to that Clorox 360. One of the reasons that we use that Clorox 360 is that the kill time, once we mist and we spray, that kill time is 1 minute. That's it, 1 minute. So certain germicidals have a different dwell time. If you use another germicidal, you gotta look on the back of the bottle, and your cleaner or your housekeeper is using that disinfect, is a difference in dwell time. You might have to leave it on there 10 minutes. You might have to leave it on there 5 minutes. So what happens is the cleaner is coming in and they're spraying, right? And then they're wiping right after their spray, but they're not paying attention to the dwell time on the back of the disinfect, on the back of the bottle. So dwell time, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important. Also, steam can be a helpful tactic to kill viruses. And you know, we're all talking about sanitizers, hand sanitizers. So I have one on my desk right here. This is important. Sanitizers must be at least 60% alcohol. And if you look on the back of it, like I'm looking on this right now, it's 62%. I never paid this any attention before. So if you're picking up your hand sanitizers and anywhere, maybe in the $5 store, the dollar store, and I shop at the dollar store, by the way, but be careful. Be careful with your hand sanitizers because they must be at least 60% of alcohol or over, at least 60%. So back to what Sam said, yes, it is kind of bittersweet for us because some of the facilities that have closed we have to lay off our employees, but also we're hiring more because of this uptick in people asking us to come in and disinfect. The one thing, I'm sorry, I'm out of order here, but the one thing I want to say is that when we come in, for instance, I'm in my office right now. I have to come to work every day, so I'm in my office right now. And if I were to come in and sanitize this area, right, with my Clorox 360 and wipe down and do everything that I have to do in order to, disinfect, not sanitize, to disinfect this area. And if someone comes into my office and they touch a surface, and they have COVID-19 or tested positive for COVID-19, that whole process has to be done all over again. So I just want to remind you again that cleaning is more important than ever now. Pay attention to what your cleaning contractor is doing. Don't buy your cleaning service as if it's a commodity. Buy it as if it's a professional service. Spend time looking into your cleaning contractor, make sure they know and they understand and they're educated. And I would just say, everybody just be safe and God bless you. Now I'm going to hand it over to, we'll have to hand it over to Marla.
I'm going to hand it over to John, and John, take it away. Hold on, John. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Marla. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. First, I want to say thank you to Marla, to Sam, for throwing this together and on such short notice and allowing us to be a part of it. So thank you. Let me start by, I should have control of my screen at this point, correct? Yes, I do. Okay. I want to introduce myself first. I'm John Bonnet, Vice President of CH Bonnet and Company. We are a commercial insurance broker and risk management firm that's been in the Philadelphia area for 30 plus years. And we've been happy to partner with PIDC for most of those years. What we want to talk about today is three areas of insurance as they pertain to the COVID-19 epidemic that we're dealing with right now. And the first one that we'll talk about is probably the one that we've been receiving the most questions on, which is business income or business interruption insurance. The second one we'll talk about is workers' compensation or work-related injury. And the third one we'll talk about is general liability insurance or bodily injury claims as a result of this COVID-19 issue. So moving on to the next slide, we should identify first what is business interruption. And I think I'd like to preface the conversation with that the specific language and wording of each insurance policy is going to differ, and it must be individually analyzed. So no two business income policies are the same. We've been reviewing countless commercial property policies and business income insuring agreements over the past few weeks, and that's certainly something we're finding, is that every single one is different from the other. Some have carve-ins that others exclude, so no two policies are the same right now, unfortunately. But what is business interruption insurance? As broadly speaking, business interruption is a type of property insurance that's often found on a commercial property or a commercial package insurance policy. Business interruption insurance is intended to provide coverage for loss of income that results from damage to a covered building or premises, which is caused by a covered peril or a cause of loss. Business income in general pays for loss of revenue that you would have earned had there been no business interruption. It also pays for the continuing normal operating expenses of the business while they're in that period of restoration, whether it be repairing a damaged building. The extra expense in that particular claim might be relocating to a temporary facility to continue operations as best that the business can. Typically under standard business interruption policy, there's 4 criteria that are required to have a recoverable business interruption loss. The first one is that there's physical damage that occurs. The second is that the physical damage must affect our insured property or our premises. The third is that the physical damage must be caused by a covered peril or a cause of loss. And the fourth is that the damage has to result in a quantifiable business interruption loss. So as we see from those 4 criteria, that property policies will cover physical loss or damage to insured property that results from a covered peril. Without physical damage from a covered peril, income loss associated with the public, for example, not choosing to travel to your establishment, whether you be a restaurant or a retail location or an event venue, or customers choosing just not to patronize a business, even if travel is restricted by a governmental authority or a civil authority. Usually this does not trigger property insurance coverage. With that said, we have seen that in several jurisdictions historically, things such as a virus or an intangible damage have been determined to constitute direct physical damage or loss. A few examples of that that we've seen would be a movie theater made a successful claim for business interruption following a curfew that was ordered by a state governor in response to widespread riots. And after reviewing the plain language of the policy, the court held that there was business interruption coverage under the civil authority provision for losses incurred to comply with the governor's curfew order. So that's an example where there really was no quote unquote physical damage. There was no fire, there was no water damage, there was no wind that that caused the collapse of a building. It's just you know, a curfew that caused a loss of income. There's a few others. One is there was a large presence of asbestos in the air of a building that rendered a building uninhabitable and unusable. There has been a distinct loss to its owner, which did constitute a physical loss or damage. So again, that's a claim scenario where no physical damage occurred, but the policy responded after the courts did their evaluation. So these are just a few examples of how business income claims have been successful in the absence of quote unquote physical loss or damage to insured property. So while many business income policies do require physical damage to insured property, we've seen that it's not always the case. So maybe there's the term physical damage in insurance policies has been found to be ambiguous, and that usually opens the door for an argument for coverage. So there's a few other business income coverages that I want to talk about. Civil authority coverage. Again, whether or not these apply are going to hinge on the fact that the policy is triggered by the above discussion. So civil authority coverage is basically inclusion of coverage for loss caused by a force of closure of property by a civil authority. So coverage would typically apply when an insured is unable to access its property due to a government order, again, as a result of a physical damage to their property or an adjacent property or even a nearby property. Another business income extension is contingent business interruption coverage, and that is that protects against economic loss that results from damage to the property of a person on whom our policyholder depends on for its business, such as a supplier or a customer. So not all business income claims are resulting just from the insured premises. It could be from damage to an insured premises that of a business that you depend on, or a utility service or something like that. Another business income extension that's rarely found in policies, but it does exist, is business income for essential personnel. This will pay the actual loss of income that you sustain due to the necessary suspension of operations during the essential person's period of restoration. Our interpretation of this form is that there doesn't necessarily need to be property damage for this form to apply. Again, a formal claims adjuster and analysis will determine ultimately if coverage applies. But an essential person absence means the sudden and unexpected absence of an essential person from their position of employment. The issue with this endorsement is that you may not find it on many property policies or business income policies, but there's also a 30-day waiting period, which is a pretty high deductible for that type of loss. So while it is rare, it's worth checking your property policy to see if the coverage extension exists and if there may be some coverage to be found under that coverage extension. The last topic I want to discuss on the business income discussion is viruses and diseases, or communicable diseases. Oftentimes these are specifically excluded from a commercial property policy. In fact, it's pretty common. But what we're finding is New Jersey is the first state that has proposed legislation to override that exclusion in New Jersey insuring agreements. So if that's successful, whether it's right or wrong, the government would basically force New Jersey insurers to pay business income claims that arise out of the COVID virus. So something to keep in mind for New Jersey. We'll be keeping our eyes on that news, and if other states follow suit, it'll be something that we're watching closely. So I will move to our next slide, which is workers' compensation. Nope, went too far. Workers' compensation and how COVID has been coming into play in that respect. Obviously, any workers' compensation claims must arise from the course and scope of employment. If an employee alleges that they are contracted COVID at work and are submitting a workers' compensation claim, they are going to have to prove, or not prove, but identify two particular factors to get a successful claim. First, they must have a positive COVID-19 test result, which is, obvious. The second is that there has to be a clearly identifiable point of transmission, which is going to be very difficult to establish, given that they could have picked it up at a restaurant, at a family gathering, etc. So while there may be workers' compensation claims that come about as a result of this COVID pandemic, the claims might be difficult to document and to have successful. So another topic as it relates to employment and the COVID-19 virus is employment practices liability insurance, and that is essentially coverage for work-related wrongful employment practices. So it's basically when an employee feels that they were either terminated wrongfully or discriminated against or retaliated against as a result of this COVID-19 virus. If a business reduces their staff as a result of a loss of revenue or a lowering in revenue, they could face claims from terminated employees for wrongful termination. Employers also might face discrimination suits if employees feel that they were singled out or asked to work from home due to country of origin or ethnicity. Employees that might feel that their health privacy was invaded by their employer asking questions about their health. Another potential for EPLI suits is that employees may face retaliation from managers or other employees if they opt to work from home before it's mandated, or if they decide not to attend a work function, sales trip, something like that, because they're concerned about contracting COVID-19. So certainly something to think about. If you already have employment practices liability coverage in force, it's highly recommended that any written complaints from employees be reported immediately to your employment practices liability insurance company, as the number one reason for claim denial is due to late reporting of written employee complaints or suits. In addition, our strong recommendation is to follow your established human resources procedures and protocols in a very consistent manner to minimize your exposure to EPLI claims. If you don't have EPLI coverage right now, it's highly recommended. It's something to consider. Buying it right now might be pretty difficult, or if you can buy it, it's probably going to have some kind of preclusion for coverage or restriction for claims that arise out of the COVID-19 crisis. So just something to keep an eye on for any businesses that may not have employment practices liability in place and think about applying for it right now. That's something to keep in mind. That wraps up our workers' compensation and employment practices liability slide. So we'll go to the general liability slide, and really all business entities that interact with the public really could face claims if customers believe they can link an illness with their staff's illness. Again, just like with workers' compensation, proof of causation is going to be a major hurdle for plaintiffs. While it is certainly a possibility that claims could come to business owners as a result of this alleging bodily injury, proving the causation could be difficult. Right now in the insurance industry, there's a debate on whether or not bodily injury as a result of the spread of the COVID-19 virus is considered a quote-unquote occurrence as defined by a general liability insurance policy. Under the standard general liability form, we're not sure if a quote-unquote accident equates to causing people to contract the COVID-19 virus. So it's something that, you know, only time will tell. The courts will ultimately decide when a case is presented, and then they'll interpret the policy forms, and then they'll decide the outcome of it, and that'll probably start setting precedent for future claims. In conclusion, you know, as health authorities work to contain the spread of COVID-19, the question about whether insurance would cover COVID-19 related losses, the short answer is, unfortunately, it depends. Due to varying policy language, ambiguous definitions of property damage in business income forms, and the fact that the insurance industry has yet to face such a challenge like the COVID-19 epidemic. So we really are in uncharted territory, as we say, but you know, things are changing on a very rapid basis in the insurance industry as it pertains to COVID-19. You do a piece of research on Monday, and Tuesday it's a whole different ballgame, and you're constantly evolving with how this virus is evolving. So you know, many factors affect whether a loss is covered under insurance, including the type of loss, the type of coverage, and the terms and conditions of a specific policy. Each policy is different, so we encourage you to discuss any potential loss of income, any liability claims, any work-related injury with your insurance professional. Obviously, feel free to contact our office to discuss or inquire or review anything we've talked about in this presentation. So, yeah, again, I want to thank Marla and Sam and PIDC for including us on this webinar and putting it together on such short notice. I hope it was informative, and we look forward to questions. So I will now turn the meeting over to Sam for Q&A. You have it, Sam? Marla,
Sam,
over to
yep.
Sam.
Sam should have it.
Okay.
Sam, if you just click the screen and scroll down. Sam, I think you have to unmute. So this is Marla. Sam, if you could go back to our contact slide so everyone can see and start asking questions. Okay, we're going to go into chat where we will take your questions. So let's see. Sam, can you unmute? Okay, I see we have some questions. Sam, can you unmute?
There we go. Thanks, Marla. Yeah, you had to unmute me. That was the issue. Perfect. All right, sorry for the foul up at the end, but thank you very, very much to each of Donna and Kate and John. As you can imagine, Marla pulled this together very quickly, and each of Donna and Kate and John were ready, willing, and able to jump on very quickly, which we appreciate greatly. They are subject matter experts in each of their fields, and you have their contact information here, and we strongly encourage you to reach out to them to the extent that you have follow-up questions. We're over our time, and the only question I saw so far related to whether or not there was whether the SBA was providing any kind of repayment holiday or what we call forbearance for buildings that were acquired with an SBA loan. I poked around their website a little bit and didn't see anything to that effect. I've put a question out to my colleagues, and we'll let you know if there is anything to that respect. As I said earlier in my conversation, we are working with the various bankers, and they are all getting requests for forbearance or for some kind of repayment holiday. I suspect that each banker or each bank is handling that differently, but they're probably all in the same position, would be my guess, which is that if a business or one of their clients is closed down, there's only so much they can do, and they're going to have to provide some sort of form of forbearance. Again, my recommendation to you is to be ready. Don't just throw a request out there. Know what the impact is to you and what your request is. Let me see if I got any other. I see, and the question is more around landlord tenant situations. Again, I don't see any evidence that there is any forbearance, but we'll take a look at it, and you should keep an eye out. You should talk directly to your lender and also look at the SBA's website. We'll do the same. I don't know. With that, I think we're over our time, and I'm not seeing other questions pop up. Again, please do reach out to each of Donna and Kate and John. Thanks to you all very, very much. I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. We did pull it together relatively quickly, and we will certainly put together another program. If people have interest, then I'd encourage them to reach out to us, and we can put together additional programs.
Sam, there are some hands that are raised.
Okay, I'm seeing on my screen. I don't know what people are seeing. Someone seems to have written onto my screen, which is interesting. And
they're saying they can't ask the question. Let's see.
Yeah, I think the chat's not working. I think, Marla, I think we should encourage people to reach out to you after. I think we should, again, we're over our time period. I want to be respectful of people's time. I think they should direct questions through to you, Marla, and then we'll respond to them either directly to the subject matter experts or to the extent that they apply to PIDC. I'd ask again that you look at our website or reach out to you, Marla, with questions.
That's fine. So for those who have questions, we really apologize for this. If you would direct your questions to me, send them to Hamilton, that's MHAMILTON at PIDCPHILA.com. We'll get your questions and we'll get your questions answered and we'll get them directed to the right presenter. So thank you all so much for bearing with us in this, our first webinar. And we look forward to your feedback. So send your feedback to me also at that same email address, as well as your questions. So thank you so much. And thank you to our presenters. And stay well. Stay well. Remember, PIDC is open for business remotely. So we thank you again.
Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate your time so much. And do be healthy and safe out there.